This is part two of a three-part series on how to write the rhetorical analysis essay. Last time we talked about the introduction. Today we will talk about the body paragraph. Here we go. Let's get started. Now, the body paragraph does constitute the bulk, the majority of your writing, meaning it is probably the single most important portion of your writing because it takes up most of the writing. A body paragraph is crucial in order to increase your score, and in the actual scoring system, it's worth up to 4 points, while the thesis is only worth 1, and the sophistication is also 1 point. So the writing of the body paragraph is crucial. Now, the format of the body analysis, it can be simply divided into two portions, meaning you can write it chronologically or you can write it sectionally. I'll explain what each one means and I'll give you examples of those as we go. Now, when I say chronologically, that means that you go through the strategies at the beginning of the text that you are analyzing, the middle and the end. So you work through the text step by step, right? Section by section. Sectionally means that you pick two sections usually, because usually you write two body paragraphs, two hearty body paragraphs. In which case what you would do is that you would pick the first portion, let's say, to talk about, and then the second portion. How does sectionally differ from chronologicals if they both go in the order of beginning and end? Well, sectionally allows you to exclude portions of the text that are not as important. So for instance, maybe the first paragraph is just the hi, how are you, how's it going, and maybe there aren't a lot of strategies there and you don't really want to focus on it, but you can write a sentence about it in order to tell the reader, let's begin here, and then you focus on paragraphs 2, 3, and 4 because they are the first section that deal with this one big idea, let's say. So that's what a sectional approach allows you to do. In either case, whichever one that you are choosing, you're always working your way from beginning to the end. And you are talking about the things that are most important. Now, here are some quick body tips. You want to tie the analysis to a specific portion of the text. All right, so that means that you don't always have to say that your analysis is about what happened in line 5 and 6, right? But you do want to tell me where I can find this information. For instance, don't say the writer uses a strategy of definition to provide an audience with a re-understanding of the issue. Yeah, but where? Where is it? Oh, it's in the first paragraph. Got it. In the first half of the text? Okay, I understand. Near the end of the passage? Okay. You have to tell the reader where things are. Again, it doesn't have to be as obtuse as line 5, line 6, but you should tell the reader where the thing is. It makes your analysis more meaningful when the reader can verify, when the reader can say, oh yeah, I do remember, I do think the first portion of the text was about that, right? Now, you want to connect every point that you make to the purpose of the text. Everything you say has to be related to the purpose of the text. If you say the writer uses a metaphor and it's pretty and I love it, that's great, but tell me how it helps the writer accomplish his or her purpose. So the first part is to identify the strategy, and the second part is to explain how that strategy helps the writer achieve the purpose. So not everything that matters in the text is important. Not everything that matters. Be selective. If there's a metaphor that is useful within a 2-sentence radius, I don't know that it matters. But if that metaphor is indicative of an overall idea that is repeated, parallel throughout the text, okay, now we're talking. Now it matters. All right, so we're going to begin with the first sentence, and then after that I'll give you the middle portion, meaning the middle sentences, and then the last sentence. Now, for a good body paragraph, I think no less the 7 sentences, really. And maybe no more than 10, but really no less than 7. If you want to write 2 hearty body paragraphs, 7 sentences are a good place to begin. Okay, so the first sentence of your body, the first sentence of a paragraph, period, is always topical, meaning that sentence determines where that body is going. So that sentence should not necessarily be summative, but it should give me a roadmap of where that body is going to go. Maybe identify the strategy you'll be talking about, and then unpack that strategy in the rest of the body. Or maybe tell me that this is the thing that you want to focus on, the topic, and then expand on that topic in the rest of the body. It doesn't matter. But the first sentence of a paragraph is crucial in determining the direction of that paragraph, and everything within that paragraph should be somewhat in the neighborhood of that sentence. Okay, so the body paragraph begins with that topical sentence and it determines the direction of that paragraph. All right, you can mention the strategy that you want to focus on and explain the rationale, but this sentence tells me what the body will be about. It's a very important sentence. This is your claim sentence. Here's an example. Understanding that his audience may not recognize or have an invested interest in decrying America's anti-intellectualism, Friedman compares the treatment of scholars in the U.S. and East Asia to appeal to Americans' national pride and stimulate competitive improvement. Okay, so the first portion of the sentence is really a later portion of the sentence, right? Because this one is dependent upon the other sentence. So this is the real claim of the sentence. Friedman compares the treatment of scholars in the U.S. and East Asia in order to do what? To appeal to national pride and stimulate competitive improvement. And why does he do that? Because he understands that his audience may not recognize or have an invested interest in decrying America's anti-intellectualism. Because he knows that we may not care about saying that anti-intellectualism is a bad thing. Maybe we don't care about this topic. Because he knows that, he compares the treatment of scholars here to that of other countries in order to appeal to a national pride. Well, you said a lot of things in that sentence. Now you have to explain it. This is what the middle sentences of the body are about. This is the how. This is how you explain everything. You make very definitive claims in the intro sentence of the body, the first sentence. Okay, let me stop right here for a second. Must my first sentence always begin the same way, meaning with very definitive claims, with a topical sentence, with a sentence packed with strategies and devices that you seek to unpack throughout the rest of the body? No. There's deductive writing and inductive writing. So sometimes you can have the reader, follow you on your evidence. So lead with the how, lead with evidence, lead with explanation, lead with examples, and then end on the claim. That's okay too. But you need these elements. You need the what, the thing you are talking about somewhere. It needs to be somewhere in that body. Most people put it at the beginning because that's the most standard way of writing. But some people, especially people who do research papers or write a lot of or do well in the synthesis essay, they often begin with the how. They begin with all the explanation. And then they tie all of those things together and they conclude, right? They deduce the claim out of all those elements. Okay, so this part of the body paragraph discusses the effects of that strategy. So these sentences, however many you need to write, they explain the first sentence by detailing how those claims make sense. And they use quotations, explanations, examples, elaboration, and further commentary, right? These are all big words to say one thing: analysis. The middle portion is where you analyze. So let me give you examples of that. Now, before the examples, let's look at some recommendations, some general recommendations for the writing of this middle portion. Okay. Try to focus your conversation on one strategy. That doesn't mean one device. That means one strategy, one big strategy. So maybe paragraph 1, 2, and 3 have a strategy of definition. For examples of what I'm talking about in terms of strategies, go look at another one of my videos, Common Strategies for the AP English Language and Composition exam. Common strategies. But this is what I mean. What I mean is there is always one big strategy that you're focusing on. If you give the reader too many strategies to think about in one paragraph, it'll be too much for the reader to handle. Now, explain how that strategy helps the text accomplish the purpose, right? So the writer accomplishes this or that, or by using this thing, the writer does that, right? Quotes small portions of the text. Quotations should always be shorter. At least, especially for this essay. We're not talking about all kinds of essays. When you're writing synthesis, it's okay to have lengthier quotations because you're quoting research and you want to explain it. But here, now, in this essay, you want to quote small portions and explain them as you go. Now, follow or precede each quotation with some commentary. No quotation should ever be alone in a sentence, ever. It feels contrived. It feels awkward. You want the reader to feel like, here is a quote. Let me explain it for you real quick, and always within the same sentence. It's better this way. Now, this commentary serves as your initial analysis. Remember that commentary is not necessarily analysis. Commentary is when you infer meaning from the text and you talk about it. Analysis is when you fabricate meaning that isn't in the text, but you are reading literally between the lines, nuanced meaning. Okay, beyond the commentary, you want to offer insight by connecting maybe one quotation to another, paraphrase, or relating those quotations to the same strategy or the strategy that you've been talking about. Okay, here's a middle sentence example. It's very lengthy. I'll read most of it. Here we go. This is evident in the latter part of the essay where he states that in the industrialized East Asian nations, a kid, quote, a kid who studies hard is lauded and held up as an example to other students, end quote, while a kid who is studious in America is ostracized and haunted to the grave. One would imagine that the more intellectuals in a region, the more likely the area benefits from the innovation and knowledge generated by them. So when Friedman states that there are unencouraging disparities in American treatment of intellectuals when compared to East Asia, he implies that the ostracization of academics has resulted in a scarcity of them, and the innovative knowledge that they offer. So, innovation fuels development, and with less academics in America than in East Asia, Friedman suggests that eventually devaluing of intellectuals in the U.S. is going to result in a shortage of scholars and therefore a lag in our development. Okay, this writer is giving you a lot of explanation, right? Quotes, explains, relates. Even though our culture does not generate individuals who study hard and pursue academia, it does value the pursuit of excellence and the idea that the U.S. is the best in the world. While Americans might not want to alter their treatment of intellectuals for their own sake, they would do so for the benefit of their country. So, what is it that this middle portion is doing? It's expanding on how the writer is targeting the audience, targeting the national pride, and I guess the confidence of the audience, or rather the way he understands, Friedman that is, understands the audience altogether. He understands that his audience, primarily Americans, may not care about this whole anti-intellectual attitude, but they don't want to be last. They don't want to be seen as uncompetitive to the rest of the world. So he targets that. How? Well, by using these quotes, and So this example explains thoroughly what we've been trying to say. Now let's talk about the last sentence. This middle portion, by the way, there's another video called Sample Analysis where I essentially cover this middle portion. So if you want a more detailed explanation of something like this, then watch that video and you'll get what you were looking for. All right, let's go back to the last sentence. The last sentence offers insight. Why? So what we've said so far is what, how, and why. I know we've said that in the intro, but that's essentially the building blocks of writing. What, how, and why. What are we talking about? How is it true? Why does it matter? Right? Now, can you move those pieces around again? Yes, you can. Now, let's look at the why, the offering of insight. This last sentence reflects on what has been discussed thus far. So, the sentence doesn't make any claims or offer any explanations because that's already been provided. This sentence should signal to the reader the conclusion of your paragraph. And this is important, that you should wrap up your own idea, not begin another. Meaning, there is a style of writing in which the last sentence of a body paragraph is used to signal or anticipate the next sentence of the next body paragraph. Don't do that. Don't do that. Every body paragraph should be sealed, tight. Should be one single unit of thought. So the last sentence is crucial, and tying all the loose ends, if you need to, in going beyond what you've already explained. If you look over your body and you say, well, I didn't really get into this or that, boom, do it now. Well, I kind of wanted to talk about the theme of this. Okay, do it now. This sentence is crucial. Here is an example of that. So some writers like to use the last sentence of a body paragraph as anticipatory of the first sentence, as I said before. So what you want is for this one to be conclusive of the claims that you've raised and reflective of the main implications that you have made. Again, you want this sentence to conclude the claims that you have raised at the beginning, tie all the loose ends, and you want to be reflective of the main implications of the evidence that you provided. Right? So this is your last opportunity to say everything that you've already said in the paragraph, but better. Now, let's look at it. With this sovereign realization steeped in nationalistic pride, Friedman creates an effective call to action that demands a new outlook on intellectualism. So there are some words and some ideas here that really get the idea going, right? The sovereign realization steeped in nationalistic pride, an effective call to action that demands a new outlook on intellectualism. So this last sentence helps to wrap it all up. So this is what it looks like all together. I'm not going to read it, but if you pause here, you'll be able to see it all together. And I think once you see it collectively, you'll be able to appreciate it more because one sentence leads to the other. Now, here are some major points on how to write the body, and then we'll be done with this video. You want to establish your claim, the what of your body paragraph, where you identify the main strategy or the devices that you are going to discuss. You want to support that idea. How? You want to quote, you want to explain, you want to relate to the purpose, you want to analyze, you want to comment, and you want to offer insights, which is your final why. Why does this evidence prove the claim, or why does this matter in the first place? All the things that this writer has said, right? So you want to reflect on the larger implications of the conversation that you've been having. All right, so we're done with the body paragraph, and next time we'll do the conclusion.